This is Dream Power Radio, the place where your dreams turn into reality. Here is your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman.
Hello, and welcome to Dream Power Radio on the amazing Women and Men of Power Network, the world's leading positive programming network, powered by Raven International. I'm your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman, the Dream Coach. This is the show where we talk about dreams, both daytime and nighttime dreams, and how you can use them to make the internal shift to a life you love. When it comes to dreams, there are many ways to figure out what they mean. Writing them down, of course, is very powerful and effective. But there's another technique for getting insight into your night images, and that's by drawing them. A picture really is worth 1,000 words because sometimes an image you can draw can convey a meaning or an emotion a whole lot better than any words you can come up with. And it's because visual images are so powerful that art therapy has become an important tool for exploring psychological issues. We're going to be speaking about the healing uses of art with my guest today, Dr. Sherilyn Leeby. Sherilyn, also known as Chez, is a licensed marriage and family therapist with over 30 years' experience. She uses art therapy in her practice, working with individuals, couples, and families. She's also the creator of the wellness education platform Soul Life and is the clinical coordinator for the nonprofit The Goodness Tour. Welcome to Dream Power Radio, Chez.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Chez, how did you get interested in using art therapy in your practice?
So it began when I was a patient in my own therapeutic healing. So when back in the day, I was required by my graduate program to participate in psychotherapy myself. And one of the first things that my therapist did, he was a family therapist, and he asked me to draw a picture of my family in action, doing something, and everyone in my family. And that was a really powerful tool for me because it was really hard for me to do. I can still vividly kind of picture the picture of what I did, what I drew. And I worked for a long time as an individual therapist with kids in particular because I'm a child therapist. And I came to learn that the means of expression through art is easier, for one thing, but also so much more vividly powerful and telling of the subconscious than I could ever consciously voice. So I use it as a tool in the same way as probably your dream work to access the subconscious struggles and dreams and desires and kind of the heart healing that's required.
Okay, so how exactly does art therapy work?
How it works, it's been around for a long time, and there are different modalities, but how it works is that once an established trusting relationship is in place, and that's kind of the therapeutic relationship, once that's in place, and people are invited to do different modalities of art therapy under the therapeutic direction, then they just kind of let their subconscious speak through the pencil and or whatever the medium is, whether it's pastels, pencil, paintbrush, any different medium. And what I love is sometimes people will say when I kind of take the week to look at what they drew and then they come back, they will say, oh my gosh, I didn't even know I drew that. I had no idea. And so that's what's really interesting is it truly is an unconscious process that brings to light in the conscious mind through the hand what's going on. And so I'm specifically trained in a mandala art therapy and assessment. And the mandala as the container of the soul definitely shows what's happening in the subconscious. And to me, it's always fascinating. I'm always like, man, that was right on. So it's specific feedback related to the artwork that's before me.
So, what kind of prompts do you give your patients to enable them to create drawings?
Well, all different kinds of things. I'm a very creative person. So, depending on what their issue that they might come up with, sometimes it's just open ended. Sometimes it's more directed, like drawing a picture of, there's a house tree person assessment that's been a psychological assessment around for a very, very long time. So those are different, those have different prompts, or family drawings, self-portraits, or the mandala is one where you simply give a blank circle and it comes out. Positioning is very important, color is very important. So all these things, the color, the position of where it is on the mandala, inside, outside the lines, they all mean different things. And it's a fascinating process to uncover, and it helps the therapeutic direction for what we might discuss. And I always am fascinated again by how powerful art is.
So, what sort of issues can be helped with this kind of therapy?
I haven't known an issue that it wouldn't help. So even and it gives the therapist great information. Trauma, anything that people come in with, trauma or just overall, general wellness and healing, it can give us indications, just like our dreams, of what's kind of most at hand that we can begin to discuss. I had a client that did this particular mandala. This is done in all black and white. It looks like a almost a shattered glass piece, but it's lots of like shards of just the black sharp edges within the mandala. And when I asked this particular person about what this would be called, because I always ask people to name their art, it was called Black Diamond. So it does look like a diamond, and that puts a different spin on it, because a diamond, can be a very positive thing. But when you first look at this, you see that it looks very broken and traumatized. This person was in a car accident, so there was lots of trauma around that. And he's also a skier. So that's why, you don't want to overinterpret. You want to know exactly where the person is coming from, and what their interpretation is. So again, it's so similar to your dream work, because you really want to do this in concert with the person, and not separate from their own interpretation. But this person was going through a very difficult time, and that was pretty obvious. There was no color in his life. There was no, it was all feeling very broken and very, very desperate.
Yeah, you said before that sometimes you have people who are surprised by what they draw. Was this person, for example, surprised that this is what came out?
Well, he's young, so no. I think with that particular situation, I didn't want to go into over analyzing that with him. I used that more as information for me in my treatment. Other people, I can go into the full understanding of what the mandala, what their drawings or their art means. But with that particular situation, that was session 1, and it let me know right away, okay, this person has some very broken internal struggle, and that leads the therapy of what my follow-up is.
So the drawings are used more as a diagnostic use?
Yes, yes. I use them definitely as a diagnostic, but then also it's a healing. So anybody that I do a mandala assessment with, I will also ask them to repeat it again in a month, 2 months, 3 months, and it just shows the inner psyche at that time. And again, with their own interpretation or their own kind of understanding of what's going on in their lives. But when you repeat it, it's oftentimes very different. So the healing, you can see that through the process. So it's a marker as a diagnostic, but also as a part of healing too. The art therapy that's more healing and expressive is when the directive is a little more geared towards somebody's healing and geared towards, let's draw what your pain is, and let's draw, how you might see healing whatever is going on. And people do really well with that too. It's amazing what comes up from the subconscious.
So what happens, let's say you ask somebody to draw, their feelings and it comes out. How do you then use that to get to the healing?
Well, it's a tool. So it is a point of conversation where you can take that set image on paper and kind of bring that into the now of how they might bring that to a healing place, and how they might make that, like how this black and white shattered drawing, how that might transform into a healed piece of broken glass, how they might do that. And when you can, again, bring that process into the consciousness, then the emotions, thoughts, and behaviors most often kind of follow. So I merge a lot of different things. I merge, cognitive behavioral therapy with some systems theory and principles, and color therapy, and the art therapy. So I kind of bring it all together in the best way that I know how, with whatever I know, and try to use that as a point of conversation.
I see. Okay, well, I want to get back to dreams for a second. Do you ever have your clients draw out their dreams?
Yes, definitely. Yes. And finish the nightmare. I know that you talk about that if there's a particular recurring dream that they can draw, and if it is something that's disturbing or difficult for them, to then finish that on paper, again, to solidify the unconscious or subconscious into the conscious realm and bring that to a place of healing. That is the trauma resolution work that I do. Very much takes people through that process of healing and reframing the trauma in any conscious way through art and other ways that they can actualize their healing.
And also in dream work, colors are very important because colors symbolize different things depending on the dreams themselves. So do you also find that the different colors used have different meanings?
Definitely. Yes, definitely. The colors are so important. And that's a big part of what I look for and what I help people understand, and what's kind of missing in terms of color in their life. So yes, the balance of color, the use of color, all those things are very important to art therapy.
Great. Okay, I want to find out so much more about this, but it's time for a little break. We are speaking with Dr. Sherilyn Leeby about art therapy on the Dream Power Show. We'll be right back. When is a car not a car?
When it shows up in your dreams. Cars are one of the most common dream symbols. If you don't know why you're dreaming about cars or any image, it can leave you confused or scared. But that dream could be a solution to a pressing problem, or an insight into a solution that's been bugging you for years. Go to my website and sign up for a complimentary discovery session, and I'll help you understand why a dream is a terrible thing to waste. Go to thedreamcoach.net for more information.
Welcome back to Dream Power Radio with your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman.
Yes, welcome back to Dream Power Radio. I'm your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman, and we're speaking with Chez Leeby all about art therapy. And Chez, I know at the beginning of the show, I talked about art being helpful, so helpful in understanding dreams, but truth be told, I rarely do draw out my dreams because I can't draw. I mean, even my stick figures look like bad stick figures. So, they really wouldn't, to me, they don't tell me that much. So how could art therapy work for someone like me who can't draw?
I love that question because I hear that all the time with any of the art therapy initiatives that I do a meditate and create series of workshops. And I hear a lot people say, I'm not good at art, or I'm not an artist. And my belief is that we are all artists of the soul, as Don Miguel Ruiz says. We are all artists in some capacity, but when our little judge gets in there and kind of tells us that we're not good enough, or that we don't like what we see, or we compare to somebody else's, which happens a lot, or we want something else than what we see on paper, that is something that I try to remove. So the way I do that is I ask people to draw with their opposite hand, because number one, that's a more helpful way to get to the subconscious and unconscious without the judge. But in another way, we don't have the expectations when we're told, oh, well, it's going to be horrible anyway, because I'm doing it with my opposite dominant hand, non-dominant hand. So I do that a lot. I'll often ask people if I know that they are one of those critics of self, particular to art, because it's not about the art, it's about bringing to light whatever is dormant, or whatever is there that can be helpful for us. So using the opposite hand is one way that helps with that. And stick figures are encouraged, actually. Stick figures are the way that language began with stick figures, emojis, and color. The first language that we have is through color and image. So those are really important. Our little stick figures, it's not about what the stick figures look like. It's about what they're doing, and the color, and the overall feeling, and the placement, and all those kind of things. So I like stick figures. Keep going with it.
Okay, so all is not lost. All is not lost. Okay,
All is not lost.
That is very good to know. Can you give me an example of someone who was very greatly helped and healed by the use of art therapy?
I can. I worked for a long time with survivors of sexual assault and sexual abuse. So again, the reason why I got into art therapy was because I would work with very young children who it was very hard for them to disclose what happened, and whether that's physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, whatever. It was really hard for them to tell, especially an adult, that they might not know what happened. But they could more easily, through psychodrama or play, act it out, or through art therapy, show me on paper. And there were many, many young children, and there were many that stick with me forever. They will stick with me. The drawings that they showed me about what happened. And just getting that out on paper is therapy in and of itself, because it keeps them from holding that shame and blame and horror within. It gets it out on paper, so that then I know, okay, let's heal this part of you that's on this paper that was traumatized, but it's not the whole you, it's the part that was hurt, and let's heal that. So there were many of those kind of situations that that medium was the only way that I could have, I think, been able to help those deep, deep things that are held as secrets.
So, in other words, they're being able to draw out these things. They were able to convey communication in a way that they couldn't with their words.
Correct. Absolutely.
Okay, well, Chez, your work isn't just limited to your professional practice. I know that you're also involved in a nonprofit project called the Goodness Tour, which goes out to people who have been affected by natural disasters. Could you tell us more about this and your role in it?
Sure. So I'm working with the Goodness Tour as a clinical advisor, and helping them with some program development for the art and music that they do. They don't call the art and music that they do therapy, but they are two of the best therapists I could imagine. So Benjamin Suarez is an artist and a muralist. He did this painting that's behind me, which is just so beautiful to me. And it's a woman with a lot of color. For those of you who can't see it, it's her eyes are just mesmerizing, and she has a heart in the middle of her forehead, the third eye, and a lot of color in her hair, and she's just beautiful. So Benjamin is a world-renowned muralist that is best friends with a man named Luc Renault. And Luc is a musician, and the two of them started this nonprofit with another friend of theirs. And they, wherever there is adversity, whether it is a war, a natural disaster, any kind of situation, they go around the world and they bring music and art to these people that are facing adversity. So I was introduced to them by other mutual friends, and I immediately fell in love and wanted to help the cause in any way possible, because I see this as the art therapy that I know heals, bringing that to the people that most need it. And when people are traumatized, as I was talking about, intense trauma, and we're talking abuse, war, horrific human conditions, when people experience that, they don't even know how to verbalize. And so letting them have the opportunity to express through music and art and other modalities is the first step in healing, because talk therapy doesn't come as easily. So that's why I support the work that they do, and want to help this mission in any way I can.
I know it's so important because, quite honestly, I mean, when we think about helping disaster victims or victims of war, the first thing comes to mind are things like food or medical supplies, but we never really stop to think about the need to help them heal their souls. And that's why I think this is
Right.
just an incredible, worthy outreach that you're doing. I know one of
Right.
the last places that you visited was the Bahamas after the devastating hurricane that they had there. What did you see, and can you tell me about that?
I love that you brought up the other areas of help for natural disasters, because I conceptualize that as a pyramid. And of course, the basic, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, those basic needs for food, water, shelter, safety, those are paramount in a disaster situation. And thank goodness we have a lot of organizations that's their mission. What I love about the Goodness Tour is that higher up on that hierarchy of need is the psychosocial support and the trauma resolution and the therapeutic endeavors that often do get missed and lost. And I don't know of other organizations that step in to provide it in this way through music and art. But I'll tell you some stories of my own experience with the Bahamas. When Dorian was coming, which was in September, I live in Florida, and we batten down the hatches when we get a threat that there's a hurricane. I've been through it many times, kind of like earthquakes in other cities or whatever, people have been through. We sandbag our houses. We remove everything from the first floor. We tape the windows. Actually, they say they don't work. That doesn't work. But we do whatever we can in case it comes to us. And we're glued to the news. And just that is traumatic, that preparation. But this hurricane was possibly going to hit Florida, and it hit the Bahamas and actually missed my area of Florida, North Florida. But it hit the Bahamas as a Category 5 storm, which is, I think, the highest recorded in history, if I'm not mistaken, to hit head-on Category 5, and it stayed there. It was a slow moving. So parts of the Bahamas were completely decimated, completely wiped out. And there are areas in the Bahamas that were already poverty stricken. And so they didn't have the means to sandbag and or it just wouldn't have worked anyway. But, and some of them didn't have the means to get out. So when that hit, one of my friends said, I think the Goodness Tour needs to go down to the Bahamas. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what I was thinking. Let's do it. So we found the ways and means with lots of help and volunteer planes, because no planes were going in and out. We had to get private pilots to help get there. So anyway, eventually, as soon as we could, we got on the ground to assess the situation. and see where we might help. And again, we weren't going with the mindset that food and water was what we could provide. It was the psychosocial support and the therapeutic healing that in any way to help with the trauma at that stage. So we got down there and saw and heard the stories that were just so difficult to hear. There were children and adults that witnessed or held on to loved ones and couldn't hold on enough for them to be swept by the sea, and lost limbs trying to save people, and had desperate measures to try and find safety. There were people that got pregnant people out by stealing a car to find a Black Hawk helicopter. You know, all these kind of desperate human measures that we all fear. And then they were left with the aftermath. So I'll pause here if you have questions.
Oh, no, go on. No, explain.
Go on. Okay.
Continue to describe what you saw and then how you helped.
Okay. So in that first kind of assessment of understanding what the needs were, they were multi-layered because there were also some political issues going on with the Bahamian people and the Haitian refugees that had come over to the Bahamas and had been there for many years. And so there was kind of this hierarchy in a way of some political unrest too, and who got to go to certain shelters and who was left behind and how that all worked. So what was beautiful about the Goodness Tour is that it doesn't matter your situation. The uniting of all cultures and all humans through tragedy, and how people pull together in a tragedy is what is part of the human spirit that is just so beautiful to witness. So Benjamin Suarez went to Abaco and he painted, I believe, 11 or 12 murals with the people and let them kind of direct the murals to what did they need to say to the world that might be pictured through art to help them heal and help them kind of capture this process of where they are now with the hope and the healing and the trauma. And then Luke spent his months there in the shelters, and he helped the kids and adults express their situation through song. So I witnessed over and over and heard from people the power of them showing up day after day, being there with them to allow them with the paintbrush or with the guitar and music to express themselves and find healing. And when you're sitting in a shelter all day, every day, and you might not even have a journal and a pen, the power in spontaneously using your voice in song, especially for kids who don't have those judge filters but can just spontaneously say how it is, that is beyond incredibly healing. And to witness that was one of the most powerful experiences of my life, and why I want to keep supporting that mission.
Yeah, what a wonderful gift it is to give these people who just at a point where they desperately need everything, and to be able to have that, I think the other thing is that doing this kind of giving them the music and giving them the art also gives them hope.
Yes. I lost my brother many years ago to suicide. And that is exactly why I became a therapist. He was 18 and I was 21. So if I do the math, it was over 30 years ago. My mission in life is to feed hope. I know that that's what I'm here to do in any way that I can. And so the Goodness Tour fit perfectly with my mission to feed hope in a positive way. I don't want to just do that in a let's bare our souls and let's cry. And that's a part of the healing process too. But let's also experience joy together and create and ascend and transcend beyond the trauma to a place that is creative and inspiring and growing and joy filled.
What a wonderful message to end the show with. But before we go, I have one final question, which is how can people find out more about you and the Goodness Tour and about the services you provide?
Thank you. So my website is www.soullife, SOULLIFE or .us, but I like to say .us. So soullife.us. And the Goodness Tour Bahamas website, which they are going back to the Bahamas to finish up lots of different work and initiatives and projects. The www.thegoodnesstour.org has information on how you can help support the ongoing missions.
Well, Chez, thank you so much for being on Dream Power Radio today. We have been speaking with Dr. Sherilyn Leeby about art therapy and the Goodness Tour and just the healing power of art. I hope you've enjoyed today's program. This is Debbie Spector-Weissman saying, sweet dreams, everybody.
You've been listening to Dream Power Radio with your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman. For more information on Debbie or to sign up for her newsletter, go to dreampowerradio.com. This has been Dream Power Radio on the amazing Women and Men of Power Network, the world's leading positive programming network, powered by Raven International.